This video was brought to you by Gamersgate.com. Download games anytime, anywhere. Skip it up and that up. So there has been this big to-do about Battlefield 4 on the PS4. Scott Lowe played it at Gamescom, and he played the dev kit PS4 version, and he wasn't too impressed. Now, I only like reading little tidbits of articles. I don't like reading the whole damn article because it's like, what the hell's the point of me doing this then? I'd rather give my take on it and say how I really feel, which I'm still going to do and go into my thoughts on Battlefield 4 on next-gen consoles. But I have to read a good chunk of what Scott Lowe wrote in his IGN article so you understand what's going on. And there's some misconceptions. People are using this to shit on the PS4. They misread this article. That's why I'm glad I waited. I sat on this for a couple days before I talked about it. So here we go. This is what Scott Lowe had to say about Battlefield 4 on the PS4, because he played it at Gamescom. This is what he had to say. With the arrival of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, EA and DICE have promised to bring the Battlefield PC experience to consoles, including massive scale maps, 64-player matches, and 60 frames per second gameplay. But up until now, all of the demos we've seen of Battlefield 4 have been running on supercharged PCs, producing jaw-dropping, unsurprisingly gorgeous results. This week at Gamescom, however, I had an opportunity to play Battlefield 4 on a PlayStation 4 dev system, and the resulting experience has me worried. In spite of EA and DICE's emphasis on narrowing the gap between consoles and PC, this week's PS4 demo did not include a full 64-player match or the franchise's beloved vehicular combat. Instead, attendees were treated to a local 16-player match of domination mode, which limited the play area to a small segment of the game's freshly minted Paracel store map. While certainly a demonstration of how the game can be scaled down to satisfy players' need for object-based infantry combat, it's hardly living up to the promise of true Battlefield experience's arrival on consoles. But what's more concerning is how the game looks. From the moment I sat down, I was surprisingly underwhelmed by the visuals. Instead of the crisp, detailed textures I've encountered this week on the PC version or other titles running on next-gen hardware, Battlefield 4 on PS4 looks soft and muddled. Wall textures look half-finished, lacking some of the smaller material nuances or 3D variation. Environmental destruction was more extensive than Battlefield 3, and explosions would send larger chunks of building into the air, but once again, the particles look dull. Weapon models look great at the hip, but as soon as I raised them to look down the iron sights or scopes, imperfections became apparent. Another contributing factor was resolution. While EA and DICE have not confirmed what resolution the game will run at on next-gen consoles, let me read that again. While EA and DICE have not confirmed what resolution the game will run at on next-gen consoles, plural, for the purposes of this demo, it was running at a resolution higher than 720p, but not 1080p. Though the difference between the two formats may not be recognizable to more casual players after spending the week checking out games running natively at 1080p, it was readily apparent to me. Then he goes into, hey, the game is still months away, this was in debug mode, and things could change, yada, 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 yada. Okay. First off, right there, in this article, I know people are bringing up the Eurogamer article where they're saying, oh, DICE is targeting 1080p 60 frames per second for the Xbox One. I already did a video on that article, I know. But it says right here that they have not confirmed for either the PS4 or Xbox One what resolution the game will run at. So how does anybody know that the game is going to look better on the Xbox One? On top of it, it's been confirmed that the PS4 is going to have superior hardware. Now, we could go into the whole thing about how Microsoft is using DirectX, they're not using OpenGL, and that's what DICE is developing the game for, so they're going to kind of port the game over to the PS4. But people are using this to say that the hardware of the PS4 is inferior. You don't even know if the game is going to look that much better or better at all on Battlefield 4. People just read the title of this video and are saying, oh, that means it's going to look better on the Xbox One. That's it. Two things. You don't know what resolution the game is going to run at. The game could look pretty much the same on the Xbox One, and it's a known fact that the PS4 has more powerful hardware. So what are you using this article for? Just as troll bait? That's the only thing you could be using it for, because it proves absolutely dick, except something I'm about to talk about now. Now, I've talked about this before, okay, and I'm psyched for the next-gen consoles. I'm getting both of them now that Microsoft changed their ways. Yes, I'm going to own an Xbox One, if I could find one, because I didn't pre-order it, because they were still doing the whole DRM thing when I pre-ordered my PS4. But what concerns me is they're struggling to hit 1080p, which we're already going into the 4K era with TVs. They're struggling to hit 1080p, and the consoles aren't even released yet. And this is supposed to be a 10-year cycle. From what Sony and Microsoft are saying, this is going to be a decade. Not that there's going to be another console in 5 years. These consoles, they designed them, supposedly, to be relevant for an entire decade. And they're already struggling to hit 1080p, which my 8800 GT video card, which was relevant back in 2008, was hitting back in 2008. It just concerns me, like, what if they're already hitting the wall of both of these consoles? If they're already maxing them out, what the hell is going to happen 2 or 3 years from now? Now everyone's going to go, "Oh, Rich, they're going to." Mark Cerny, went into, they could tap into more power later on. What I don't buy with that is that, according to devs, not me, I'm not a developer. Don't shoot the messenger. Is that this hardware is really straightforward. Just like programming for PC, the x86, x64, whatever the hell you want to say, it's very familiar territory. That, back in the day when they made hardware, it was dedicated hardware. When they made consoles, I mean to say, it was dedicated hardware that developers had to learn and work around and really tweak to really get the full performance out of it. This generation's different. They're basically just dedicated PCs, the next-gen consoles. Maybe the Wii U, not including the Wii U in that, but the Xbox One and PS4 are dedicated PCs. So what magical tricks are they going to pull out of their ass 4 years from now that they can't do now? I mean, maybe they'll find better engines, they'll make better engines to work with the limitations of the hardware to eke things out of them somewhat, but it's not going to be like in the past. So it just concerns me that they're really having to use all these resources to desperately try to get a 1080p game out of the next-gen consoles that aren't even here yet. And a lot of people say, "Rich, it's always been that way." That's not necessarily true. As far as I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Xbox 360, when it came out, was actually ahead hardware-wise of what gaming PCs had in terms of graphics cards. It was actually like 6 months or a year ahead. So it wasn't the same boat. It was actually the consoles were somewhat more powerful. The PS4 or the PS3, excuse me, was more powerful too. I remember people saying. I remember a guy who was who was really into PC gaming back then saying, the PS3. Keep on switching PS4, PS3, Jesus Christ. PS3 was more powerful than any gaming PC out there. I'm just going by a friend of mine, but I think there was articles saying that about the 360, that it was the GPU, and it was like 6 months to a year ahead of what you could get on the PC graphics card market. So I don't know. It just concerns me. Am I excited for next gen? Yeah, this is not me talking from a PC elitist standpoint, but the fact that they're already struggling you shouldn't be struggling. I mean, this generation was the 7th generation was the first quote-unquote HD generation, and only like sports games and exclusive titles and fighting games ran at 720p and 1080p, or maybe Xbox Live Arcade games and PSN games. So you would think that it would be effortless to get games on next-gen consoles to run at 1080p, and if that's not the case, what the hell is going to happen like 7 years from now when we're still dealing with these consoles and they're complete dogs? You don't think I'm shitting on the consoles. I'm just being real, man. It definitely concerns me. All right, I'm going to push my soapbox over to the side. Anyway, make sure to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for supporting Review Tech USA. Have a good one.